So, what if the biggest story in crypto right now isn't about some coin going to the moon? What if it's actually about something, well, kind of boringly stable? Today, on The Explainer, we're diving into how a specific type of digital dollar is quietly making its way out of the world of trading and into your actual everyday life. Yeah, let's just start with this question right here, because it gets to the heart of a huge shift that's happening in finance. If the last few years were all about speculation, the next chapter seems to be about real world use. So normal, in fact, that even your grandma could be using it without a second thought. But okay, before we get too far ahead, what is a stablecoin really? Well, put simply, it's a crypto token that's built to hold a steady value. So unlike the wild roller coaster of Bitcoin, a stablecoin like USDC is pegged to something like the US dollar. Just think of it as a digital dollar. That's the easiest way. And look, this isn't just some theory floating around. It's happening as we speak, and it's being driven by some really big names. We're going to break down how three totally different companies, a neobank, a credit card giant, and a tech provider you've probably never heard of, are all pushing this forward. All right, first up, Nubank. Now, you might not be familiar with the name, but in Latin America, they are an absolute giant. We're talking about the largest digital bank in the entire region. And here's what's just mind-blowing about Nubank: the scale. Over 100 million customers. So when they decide to do something, it makes waves. I mean, we're not talking about some tiny startup experiment. This is a massive financial institution going all in on this tech. And you know what? This move makes total sense when you look at the local market. In Brazil, stablecoins aren't some weird niche thing. They already make up 90% of all crypto trading volume. The demand is already there. Nubank is just building a much better way to meet it. This slide really breaks down the problem they're solving perfectly, right? The old way was just clumsy. You had to sell your digital dollars, wait a few days for the actual cash to show up in your bank account, and then you could pay your bill. Nubank makes that whole multi-day headache just vanish. It becomes one instant tap in their app. So what's the big play here? It's actually super simple. They're basically telling their huge customer base, hey, why go to some external crypto exchange? Just stay with us. You can hold and, more importantly, use your digital dollars right here. It's the classic walled garden strategy, and it's brilliant. So at the end of the day, you can think of it like this. Nubank is trying to become the Apple Pay of stablecoins for Latin America. They're taking all the messy, complicated stuff, hiding it in the background, and just making it simple, safe, and incredibly easy to use. Okay, so that's the story from a huge regional bank. But what happens when a true global incumbent like Visa gets in the game? Well, they're coming at this from a totally different direction, from the top down. You know, Visa's actually been playing around with stablecoins for a while now, but it's been mostly behind-the-scenes stuff, like settling payments between big banks. But now, the game is changing. They're shifting from that back-office plumbing to putting stablecoin-powered cards right into our hands. And that is a huge shift. The technology is moving from being this invisible part of the world's financial plumbing to something you could actually use to buy gas, or groceries at Target, or a late-night taco. It means you could be using digital currency, well, everywhere, anywhere you see that Visa logo. And here's the really smart part of Visa's whole plan. They make it all invisible. They don't really care if you're paying with dollars or digital tokens. It's like this quote says, "As long as the payment goes through instantly when you swipe your card, who really cares what's happening under the hood?" And that's the takeaway. Their whole goal is to make stablecoins boring. Yeah, you heard me, boring. Because think about it. In the world of payments, boring is good. Boring means it just works every single time. And for Visa, making things boring and reliable is a multi-billion-dollar business. All right, so we've got Nubank coming from the consumer side and Visa from the global network side. But what about the tools, the stuff that lets new companies build? That brings us to our third story, Lithic, the hidden infrastructure that's arming the rebels. So what is Lithic? The easiest way to think about them is like Stripe, but for issuing payment cards. They provide the tech that lets basically any startup create and launch its own card program without having to build all that crazy complex financial plumbing from scratch. Okay, so why is this such a big deal? Because Lithic lets these new companies issue cards that are funded directly by stablecoins. Just imagine you're in a country with a shaky economy like Argentina. Instead of watching your savings evaporate, you can hold them in stable US digital dollars and spend them directly with a card. That is a game changer. I love this analogy because it just hits the nail on the head. If Visa is that big, polished, top 40 radio station that everyone listens to, Lithic is handing the aux cord to 1,000 different indie bands. You're going to get all sorts of new, interesting, and experimental stuff. So Lithic's whole play is to be the plumbing, the fundamental rails for this entire new wave of fintechs. They are powering the next generation of financial companies that, odds are, you haven't even heard of yet. Okay, so let's zoom out. We've talked about a neobank, a global network, and an infrastructure provider. How does this all fit together? What does it all mean? What you're really looking at is a full-stack assault on the old way of doing things. You have Nubank at the top, creating that beautiful, easy user experience. In the middle, you have Visa, making it all invisible and acceptable everywhere. And from the bottom up, you have Lithic empowering an army of innovators. They're all pushing towards the same future, just from completely different layers of the financial world. And that is the key takeaway here. Stablecoins are growing up. This isn't just for crypto traders on Twitter anymore. This is becoming a real foundational piece of the payment systems you and I might be using every single day, and you might not even realize it's happening. So this quiet takeover, it's not some far-off prediction. It's happening right now, piece by piece. The technology is literally moving from the internet into your wallet. So the only real question left is, are you ready?